Okay, I hope I've done this right. So, in this week, Sunday, you turned in your marketing plan, and part of it covered Porter's Five Forces. Now, Porter's Five Forces is another one of those bedrock marketing principles that Michael Porter developed when he talked about the threats to your business. And if you'll remember from our discussion last week about SWOT charts, you had strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And Porter did a really good job of defining the 5 threats that you need to consider in any marketing plan and any concept to look at what's going to affect your business. We talked about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and Porter's really jumps into the threat component here. So I'm going to pull up an excellent presentation from one of the groups, and I'm going to use their stuff and talk about the 5 competitive forces. So his first is threats of new entrants. Well, that was always an interesting concept to marketing people, because every one of you is writing about either a new product or a new service. So you are a new entrant. You are a threat to one of those established businesses already. But once you get established, then you've got to look down the road at who's going to come in and knock off your model. And there is always a discussion in business. Is it better to be first to market, or is it better to be better to market? So do you let somebody else create a new food, in this case for Firebirds, and then knock it off? Or do you try and be the Firebirds and introduce it? So threats of new entrants is always something that you've got to monitor, because their whole purpose is to go out there and market and take away your new customers that you've worked so hard to build up. So you've got to be aware of that. Now, if you have a specialty product, it's obviously much better than just, putting lipstick on a pig and trying to present it as something new. So if there are very heavy startup costs involved, you've always got some kind of a opportunity there, but you've got to look at the new entrants. The second thing is threats of substitutes. This is a real, and this group, Freebirds group, did a really good job here, because what I like about this, in addition to Freebirds, Chipotle, Torchy's, they also included Taco Bell in here. Now, would you normally have put Taco Bell in with a group that included fresh made food, made to order? Most people probably wouldn't have, and I was really pleased to see them include Taco Bell in here, because Taco Bell is the low-cost substitute that could replace the Freebirds tacos and burritos just on a whim. Someone driving down the street, they don't have a lot of time, there's a Taco Bell, boom, they're in there, not thinking that they could go to Freebirds and probably be in and out just as fast. So you have to think about not only threats within your own class of business, but you also need to think about threats above you and below you. What else could be substituted? So we don't have any groups in here, but think about an amusement park, opening an amusement park. Are all the other amusement parks in the area their competition? Sure they are. But then there's other things. The beach. You go down to Galveston, for instance. There is a Schlitterbahn in Galveston. Okay, great. They say, we got no other competition. We're Schlitterbahn. Yeah, they do have competition. It's called the beach out there. That's a huge competition for them. And all the businesses and the events and the pleasure pier and everything's going on, that's all competition to Schlitterbahn that normally would not be in their class. So you've got to think above you and below you when you're looking at what are the threats of substitution in there. Now, bargaining power, we're going to talk about suppliers and distributors both. Suppliers obviously control the flow of material to your business. So whether it's food, whether it's one of the groups is doing beef. So they were writing about the suppliers being, I was very impressed. They wrote about a vet being a supplier to the beef farm, which is right. Again, they're thinking outside, they're thinking above and below their level. But suppliers can make or break you. Just like it says down here, you have to have a very good reputation to work with Freebirds in this case, but you've also got to have a really good relationship. That's the real key. I don't know if anybody remembers Ninfas. Back when we were living in Houston, Ninfas was the place to go. It was said that Mama Nifa was actually the one who invented, some of the Mexican dishes that we now take for standard. Her tacos al carbon was something that she invented. Well, I happen to know a family member of the man who was chairman at Cisco Foods. And Ninfas owed Cisco $7 million in the early 80s for food that they had never paid for. And finally, Cisco just cut them off and just said, look, we cannot afford to float you anymore. And within a year, Ninfas was out of business because Ben E. Keith wasn't going to sell to them because they knew what was going on. So they did not maintain their relationship with their supplier. And when that supplier cut them off, it put them out of business. And now, to my knowledge, I think there's only 2 Ninfas left in Texas. The original one is still down in Houston, and there's one in Waco. That's the only 2 I know of around here. And that used to be just an amazing chain. So your suppliers have to be your partners. Now, the next part of this is the bargaining power of buyers. Remember, these are the customers. They can come and go whatever they want. And if they're not being satisfied, they've got all kinds of other choices, as we saw back up here in competition. So you've got to maintain a relationship with your buyers as well as their customers. You've got to take care of them. And we get into advertising. We'll talk about word of mouth advertising. Of course, now we know the power of the internet. The internet is the one-to-many advertising media. I post something on my LinkedIn page. I've got over 500 people. Maybe 4 will read it. No, I'm just kidding. There's a whole bunch of people that will read that. So I have that power of one-to-many to influence other people. So if I write a good review about Freebirds, other people go, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. I might have to go try that out. So just as important in maintaining a relationship with the suppliers is maintaining one with the buyers. And finally, the rivalry. Okay, it's industry rivalry is kind of like the competition, but again, the industry rivalry can expand beyond just the Mexican food because we all have choices. I can go up here to Jim's restaurant and get a pretty good little Mexican meal up out of there. There's all kinds of places in town that serve other foods. So you've got to expand your thought on your competition beyond just your direct competition. And as I said before, look above, look below you, and think about what's going on in the rivalry in the industry. So this was a really good, really well-written section on porters, and I wanted you to see this. So now I will stop the recording.